So I finally finished Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. This has been a while in the making. How long did this take me? So my playthrough was about 33 hours, and I believe I first talked about it when I was most of the way through the first hub area of the game. I think I'd finished it, Santa Monica. So now, having finished the whole game, what do I think of it? Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is a good game. It is definitely a good game. And it has problems. And I can't... But it's really hard to blame the problems on the developer, on Troika. So, a couple things to note, because I think it's important background for all the critiques that I'm going to get into before I get into the... I want to get into the critiques before I get into the praises. Because I would like to leave on a positive note, because I do like the game and I would recommend it. So, Troika was a part of Activision. And Activision had a PC exclusive a PC exclusive branch that they were running for publishing. So around 2003, 2004, Activision decides that they do not want to continue supporting this branch. This is around the time they were doing Call of Duty, and you can kind of imagine that they are probably more keen on going multi-platform for the future. So that does not necessarily bode well for Troika. This was not a situation where they were gonna let them finish. They were going to let them finish. They were get it into a playable state where you can ship it and get it out by this date. Have the game done by this date. And you can feel it. You can feel that the game was shipped out, I don't know, 6 months early. It needed more time in the oven in a lot of ways. Also, another thing. Vampire Bloodlines is a Source Engine game. It was a Source Engine game released started development well before Half-Life 2 came out, which was essentially the game that the Source Engine was made for. So the game is being developed on basically a beta version of Source for a lot of its development. At a certain point, it got so frustrated because Valve would keep updating the engine as they were making Half-Life 2. And then Troika would have to go back and oh fuck, all the NPC scripting is different. Oh fuck, all the physics have to be rewritten. And it was a huge pain in the ass. So eventually they actually just... Technically, Bloodlines runs on a fork of the Source Engine that they just, at some point in its beta, they just said, okay, we're just making our own. We're just splitting off, and we're doing... This is our own version of Source now. So, this game is buggy and janky. And in some ways, it's funny. And in other ways... In some ways, it's funny. In some ways, it's harmless. In even more ways, it is kind of intrusive and not great. And I think does harm the game. Again, it's hard for me to really hold it against the game because the circumstances were so shitty. There's a great sit-down interview kind of podcast thing that Tim Kaine did with, what's his name? Leonard Boyarsky, I believe. Who they'd worked on Fallout together. They worked on Vampire together. They later worked on... Well, they started Troika together. And when Tim starts talking about... starts asking him about Vampire, because Tim was not on Vampire until the last leg of it. Because I believe he was working on Arcanum at the time. and then like finished that and went over to help with Vampire. When he starts talking about it, you can see Boyarsky like kind of clam up, and it is clearly a very bad time in his life. He says like he gained a bunch of weight, like he got sick and shit. He was just stressed the fuck out. It was a really bad experience, to the point where he said that for years afterwards he couldn't even look at gameplay footage because it was just like a knife in his heart. It's the way that he almost talks about it. So it's hard for me to hold it super against it, but when talking about the game, I do have to mention the game is jank as fuck. Cons, yes. The last third of the game you can start feeling like the downward slope of quality, as around the third hub. So Vampire is kind of arranged into hub areas. There's 4 main hubs, and each of them have their own set of side missions and main story missions, and culminate in 1 or 2 like instanced area missions to kind of cap them off. I would say of these, a lot of the best content is in Santa Monica, the first one, but I think they're all fine. They're all serviceable, but you can definitely feel around the third one, Hollywood. You can feel stuff start to slip a little bit, and by the time you get to the end of Hong Kong, which is the 4th and final hub area, you're like, this does not have as much. There's like literally like it's shorter. It feels like it was cut short a little bit, like there should have been 1 or 2 more story beats to set certain things up. There's like a major faction introduced who just kind of show up, and it's like you don't get a whole ton of information on them. And then they are very important to the end of the game. And then like I would say that genuinely like the last like 10% of the game is pretty rough. The final like 2 or 3 instanced like dungeon stuff that you have to go through is not great. And that is because the combat in this game is very, I would call it, if I'm being kind of mean, I would call it dog shit. Vampire does not have amazing combat, which is fine because it's an RPG that often has many different ways to resolve situations, right? So I should kind of mention the character build that I picked. So you have all of these different clans, these vampire clans that you can pick from. There is no character customization visually. There is like a male and a female model for each one of the clans, and that's it. So pick the one you like more, I guess. The clans influence... So the clans are they're from the tabletop game, and they kind of are meant to represent your how they kind of fit into vampire society. They tend to be kind of matching or more suited for different vampire archetypes. For role-playing purposes, it's more so on the tabletop side. In-game, it really comes... The most important part is your... the options that it gives you and the sort of play style that each clan tends towards. So I picked a gangrel because they are like the shape-shifting, like fucking beast form vampires. And I like druids, and I like the shape-shifting fucking wild form thing. I thought that would be cool. I like the idea of doing like unarmed combat. That seemed neat to me. I like that that clan. So I had a mainly unarmed combat focused build, or one that was very good for unarmed combat. At a certain point, pretty quickly into the game, I realized melee combat feels very bad. And because this hit detection is a thing of science fiction in Vampire. So you kind of have to learn to work around the combat system as opposed to working with it, which feels like kind of a problem. Like, so when you're doing melee combat, which can be unarmed or with weapons, you're clicking to attack, and then whenever you're in melee combat mode, you go to third person, which is probably better. First person melee combat tends to be a little weird in a lot of games. So when you're attacking, your kind of inclination would probably just be to like mash click and just mash the attack button and just attack. But you actually can't do that. If you have... Actually, I think it's with every single melee option. If you do a string, you can do a string of 3 attacks in a row. The third attack will always be your character doing some abysmally slow, like either spinning attack or something like really fancy looking that takes a long time, that you can be hit out of, and that many times fails to register as a hit. I cannot tell you how many times in this game, like it is a regular occurrence, to be trying to melee and get the third hit, like the finisher blow, and literally just watch my character's limbs or weapon float through the opponent's model, and nothing happens. There is no feedback at all. Like, there's no damage register, nothing happens. It just literally doesn't work. So what you actually have to do is like double tap or like space out your single taps so that you don't get the stupid finishing blow hit. And that tends to be better because the purpose of like the gameplay function, the mechanical function of the finishing blow is that it knocks enemies away and knocks them on the floor. Now, so first of all, you kind of don't, if you're meleeing, you kind of want to keep them close to you. But if they're on the floor, you're like, oh, well, that's fine. Except for no, because the incredibly janky way that the animation and like character states work in this game makes it so that the character will be on the floor in like the on the floor like position. And then when they get up, there is no animation of them getting up. They will just like flicker. There is so many instances where characters just flicker around the screen in different animations and states because the game like cannot decide where they should be or what they should be doing and what animation should be playing. And like I knock an enemy down and with like, because they have like a shotgun, and then I'm running over to them to follow up to try to hit them as they're getting up, run a little okie, and in a single frame they like magnetically snap from being completely on the ground to on their feet already firing their weapon, and I get hit. It's like, oh, okay, cool. All right. Yeah, it happens so often. Feedback in combat is very weak. Most characters like do not, there's sometimes like flinching animations, but again, it's oftentimes like animations will just kind of be playing, both of your animations will just be playing over each other, you and the enemy. And they'll like, sometimes you can't interrupt them, sometimes you do. It's very weird. Combat just feels very unresponsive, and like you don't get. It's just it doesn't feel very good. It just doesn't feel that good. Not a great experience. So if you just like do the delayed attacks, right, and you kind of space them out a little bit, you can kind of just like stun lock them. You can actually just stun lock them occasionally, and they can't do much until their programming like forces them to do something else. So that's why you don't want to do the spinning kick or something, whatever your stupid finishing move is. Other stuff on the combat. So I never went for much of the guns, because that just wasn't in my build. The guns seemed fine, although they never did very much damage because I didn't have enough of a guns skill, which I guess makes bullets deal more damage. Well, just like how it works in real life. So the oh god, hang on, there's something else with the combat that was bugging me. Oh right, so the combat being bad is a bummer for a number of reasons. So so for me personally, I was a gangrel, and gangrels are like kind of unarmed fighters, right? And you have all these vampire powers, and each vampire clan has access to their own unique set of vampire powers. There's a couple like common ones that I think most of them have, but they all get like a couple unique things to do. So I get like some animal powers, like you can send a horde of bats, summon a horde of bats around. No, it's ravens onto an enemy to like distract them, which is very useful. You can like shoot like a scarab beetle at them that like burrows in and deals damage. It's like a little projectile support you get. You can like summon a wolf that attacks them, like a spirit wolf. That's cool. And they have those are all like abilities you unlock across a single, I think it's called animalism. That's across like a single skill thing as you level it up. They have an entire skill called Protean, which is all about going into your animal form. And the more you level it up, the more powerful that gets. And then at the final form, you get like the final level, you get your full animal form on, your war form. I never got to the war form because I realized pretty quickly that putting points into Protean and actually using it at all sucked. Essentially, the idea is that you gain like monster claws, which just sort of, I think, slightly increased your range, but also your damage and your stats while you have it activated. It's like a timed buff. But the old boogeyman hit detection comes in, and you know, when you pop your fucking like vampire, like feral claws, and you're like, time for me to go in and like rapid slash fucking Wolverine berserker rage on the enemy, right? On this big group of enemies. Like it can hit multiple characters. You get these big cool slash effects, like particle effects, as you attack. And then no, it's actually the most like fucking half the attacks do not register on the enemy. For some reason, the way that the Protean buff works, the way it's coded, enemies just fucking your claws just sail through them harmlessly, and it feels really bad to use. It is just a better option to use your standard unarmed fists, because the damage is just more consistent. And like you don't have to like single tap everything, which only really works against solo opponents. If you're fighting a group, fucking you'd think that like all the claw or the more AoE aspect of the Protean buff would be cool. You'd think that it would make it easier. Nope, it's just awkward and hard to use because you have to do it so slowly. It's actually just better to just blitz down the enemies with your just unbuffed up fists. Which was like very disappointing to me. That, in my opinion, the coolest thing about like the fantasy of the clan choice is eventually like, you get these fucking cool monster claws, and then at the max level you get to like get into an alternate beast form, like fucking an altered beast or something. But actually doing that sucks and feels like shit. That was kind of a bummer. I kind of wish I'd picked So I had like a little bit of regret. I kind of wish I'd picked a different clan to start out with, because that was just sort of disappointing. Also, I realized that when I play games like this, I really do like stealth, and I like dialogue options. I like stealth and dialogue options, and it would have been really cool if I had. Oh man, you can actually just build a character that never really has to fight. They never has to fight. They can get through things with haggling and persuasion checks. There's like 4 different kinds of speech checks. There's like persuasion, intimidation, seduction, and I feel like there's one more that I'm forgetting. Is it haggling? I don't think that's like a persuasion. But there are like literally multiple different ways that you can convince people to do stuff. That's really cool. It's not just like a single charisma check or something like that. And that can be influenced by like the appearance, literally like the appearance of your character. So the Nosferatu are like the most monstrous, scary looking, inhuman. They look like mutants, right? They like get negative persuasion. They cannot smooth talk anybody. They like negative seduction. I think they can intimidate a little more easily, but people are just fucking scared of them. Like you cannot charm someone as a Nosferatu, but in exchange they get like cool stealth stuff and probably some other stuff. I don't know. I almost wish I picked a Nosferatu. I think they get hacking as well. I like the sneaky stuff and I like the dialogue option stuff. That's how I like to play these games. Thankfully, actually, I think my choice ended up working out in the end, because I say you can make a character that never has to fight, or fight only minimally, right? And that's true. That seemed like it was a clear design goal, to design as much of the game as possible in a way where you can fight, sneak, and talk your way through situations. Until you get to Hollywood, and specifically the end of the Hollywood hub. So every hub has basically a haunted house. Every hub has will culminate or nearly culminate in a section where you got to take a taxi over to another area and go through some kind of spooky house. The first one is probably the best one. The Ocean Beach Mansion in Santa Monica is an incredible sequence. It is an amazing horror. Like, I was not expecting the game to turn into, like, obviously it has a horror theme, but I was not expecting it to become such a genuinely good horror experience. The Ocean View, I think. Yeah, Ocean View Hotel. Amazing section. Like, totally get why that was in the first hub area, like the first 10-20% of the game. At the end of Hollywood, you go to a house, and at the bottom of that house is a boss fight that isn't very fun. And then the boss fight is over, but you don't just go out of the house. You go into the sewers, aka the Warrens, is what the area is called, or the series of areas. This leads into a terrible sewer level. It is the moment the boss fight starts to, like, that is actually like the flag. That is the moment that you can pinpoint that the game kind of starts to get worse. The Warrens is just like not fun. It is in many parts mazy, like it's the usual sewer level mazy labyrinthine nonsense. But it is also an entirely combat segment. You are just running through tight corridors that look the same, and there are big, scary enemies tucked around corners to jump out at you, and you just have to... At a certain point, I just started running because they were so annoying to fight that even as a character that had like 4 points in my... 3 points in strength, 4 points in brawling, like 3 points in my dodge. I was just getting my fucking... I was losing so much health to these enemies if I was actually fighting them. Eventually, the only way that I was able to actually get through them, besides just running past them, was that at some point, I don't know why, but all of their AI just started breaking, and they would not attack me anymore, and I could just like rush them down and kill them. Oh, another problem with the combat is that the you don't gain any experience from killing enemies. You only gain experience from completing story missions. It's just that kind of game, but it also makes these segments with a ton of combat feel very unrewarding because the combat feels bad, and you don't get anything out of it. And then from the end, that point onwards, so the end of the game is not great. It's gameplay wise, it's story wise, it's good, but you go through like at least I went through 2 different big dungeons that are just combat. It is all combat. Stealth goes out the window. Negotiations go out the window. There's no way to talk your way through. You basically can't stealth through. It's just the designers. You can feel them just like, fuck, how do we make this? Because combat is the easiest way. Combat is the easiest way to create challenge and escalation. So just fucking throw a bunch of enemies at them. And I won't lie, I got to the boss of like the first of those like dungeons. I don't want to go too much into spoilers. And I tried it. I tried fighting it. I tried fighting that boss like 3 or 4 times, and then I just turned on God mode in the console, and I just God moded the rest of the game because I wanted to see how the story ended. The gameplay really starts suffering in the last third. And it's a shame because I actually like a lot of the Chinatown stuff that is there. I like a lot. I like the content. I like the map. I like the way it's designed. There's some cool story threads and characters. But it just ends. So there's like a side quest with a guy who he runs like a shop of occult items, and it's this cool storyline, but it lasts 2 missions and then it's over. And I was like, what? Oh, that's it. Like he doesn't have anything. Oh, okay, weird. I'm just done with that guy. Yeah. I have been talking negatively about the game for like a very long time. I think that is my complaints with the game out of the way. It's the core problems are the combat feels very bad, and the further you get in the game, the more you can kind of feel the designers leaning on the combat as a crutch. Like there's some fucking bad boss fights in this game. There's some bad bosses. And it's like, because they're like, oh, what do we do? Combat is somewhat required for like earlier in the game, but it is very passable with a character with a little to no combat ability. Yeah, you can feel the corners cut on certain places. There's a part where you go to the Nosferatu den. I like the Nosferatu so much. I thought they're really cool. And unfortunately, their area is, you can literally, I think, fucking in that thing with Kane and Boyarsky, they're like, yeah, it just like was not finished. It just like was not a finished part of the game. It's that, or there is definitely, I read an official one of the devs saying that part was like, they kind of smoothed it over with like, oh, you're not supposed to see the Nosferatu. But I mean, it's such a cool area. but there's like literally 3 NPCs in it. So I want to talk about the good things, because believe it or not, this is a good game. And I want to remind you, I would recommend it. Just know what you're getting into, and that maybe you want to adjust your build or your play style and take some of the good with the bad. So, the good. Pretty much all the narrative stuff in this game is really, really good. For 2004, the quality of both the writing and the voice acting and the facial animations, which this game was very lauded for at the time, is stellar. I was actually blown away by the quality of the performances when I first started playing. And there, from what the worst performances are just like fine, and it's for like minor characters, right? There is an excellent level of quality across the board for the voice acting and the writing. There are so many fucking characters I like from this game. There are so many cool characters and storylines, and they really sold me. I knew nothing about the vampire world. I didn't know about the lore, but they ended up selling me. I wouldn't say I'm like a super fan and I gotta consume everything now, but I was really definitely like, okay, I'm into this actually. I like this. Let me just like characters that I liked. I'm just looking down the wiki. Oh my god, the first quest line with the asylum nightclub and all the shit you do for that is amazing. That is such a cool, like, oh my god, like it's such a great, I don't even want to talk about it. It's a great great development of like these two characters of the fucking sisters. What did I really like? The Anarchs were really cool. Okay, there's so much stuff in this game that is like 90s edge, like 90s kind of counterculture. It's very like goth nightclub scene, counterculture, subculture type thing. Walking around in this game is like, I kind of felt occasionally like there's so much just like sex. There's so much just sex stuff all over. And it feels 90s in a way that reminds me of this. There's like this thread that I read. It was like a Blue Sky post, I think. And it was someone talking about how funny the movie Eyes Wide Shut is from a modern perspective. Because the fucking crazy, shocking thing in that movie is mainly, oh my god, adults get together and have orgies. And, you know, from a modern perspective, it's like, okay, I mean, that's their business to have like their private high society orgy club. But the way that it's framed in the movie, I couldn't find like I don't think I could find the original post. Maybe I could if I went digging. But it was basically like, it's a movie that only makes sense in a society that is terrified of sex. That is very prudish. Vampire reminds me a lot of that, because a lot of its edge is just fucking sex everywhere. Just sex everywhere. It's a little funny. It never like got grating or on my nerves. It's just like like there's just a club you go to called the Asp Hole, and you're like, what? Okay, fine, sure. Sex and nightclubs and strippers and big titty. There's fucking prostitutes on every corner that you can pay a little money to take into an alley and then drink their blood. Oh, fuck. One more complaint about the combat. I'm sorry. So one problem with the combat is that eventually I realized that once my brawl skill was high enough, brawl also makes it easier for you to feed on people and drink their blood. And you can just drink their blood to death if you want to and kill them. uh, in one-on-one combat, especially near the end of the game, it was the strategy was just to, if there was more than one enemy, just to kill everyone, and then once there was one enemy left, to just drink their blood and kill them that way, because you could get like almost a full heal off of it and replenish your blood to use your vampire powers. And that also kind of slows the gameplay down because it takes like 10 seconds to like fully drink someone's blood. And that was just the optimal way to play the game that I discovered. Anyway. Oh man, that whole section in like the hotel, that just feels like filler, and it's like all combat. It just feels like they're padding up time, and I don't know why it's there. Anyway, yeah, it's the vibe of the game. Maybe some people, it won't be their speed. I didn't mind it. It's not like my favorite thing in the world. But I don't know. It's very of its time in a way that, I don't know, it's just part of the game's identity. What else is that? I really liked Isaac. I liked, I liked a lot of the Nosferatu characters. I'm scrolling down. There's just like a bunch of like little, the Heather character is really interesting. You just get like tons of neat little interactions with people throughout the game. There's like a cool thing with that fucking Chinese scientist guy in the Chinatown area. I almost said Hong Kong. I'm thinking of Deus Ex. And you just run into like tons of interesting, charming characters, or just people that are, I don't know, like the character writing is great. The dialogue is very well written. People have a lot of character. It's just kind of a treat to meet people and talk to them. You get a lot of pretty well written dialogue from them and dialogue options. And it just, the narrative is just, it gives you some, it starts off, I would say, a little bit slow, where it's a lot of Santa Monica is just kind of setting the scene, just kind of getting you acquainted with the world and what what's in the vampire world. That's why I didn't have a whole ton to say about it, because you're just kind of like going around doing stuff. You're just kind of going around on missions for the first bit of the game. And then eventually you kind of stumble into this plot line about this ancient sarcophagus that must be destroyed or must be recovered or something, or people are kind of freaking out because they don't know if something crazy is inside. And then, it's a decent plot hook. It's really propped up by, I think, the great characters. And I love LaCroix. LaCroix is I like how there isn't like a single villain. You could say LaCroix is kind of the villain, but he's also like your boss. It's this sort of interesting situation where you are working for the bad guy, and like you kind of know that, but he's not doing anything like super bad at the moment. And you can choose to go along with him if you want. And that's kind of I don't know, it's a neat story. It's told well. It's hard there's so many specific things that are like wrong with the game, but a lot of the really good things are sort of ambient. It's just stuff that's always kind of happening. It's the narrative elements. It's the atmosphere is something people always praise, which I agree with. The whole game takes place at night because, you're a vampire. It's always at night. The music is really cool. There's just lots of goth vampire tracks, You're walking around these respectably large hub areas, and there's just always people walking around. The cities and the locations always feel like there's something going on, there's always NPCs walking around. I think for the time it was pretty impressive, and it still feels pretty good today. tons of like I always really liked exploring the hub areas, and before I would even get into the main side mission, like before I would delve into the main mission stuff, just going around and meeting people and going in all the shops and all the businesses and things like that and exploring. And then funny enough, the main plot would then have me go back there. And just it's a very dense, enjoyable world to be in. It's cool to have this idea of like a contemporary vampire story with the modern day technology. I love the idea of the masquerade, where you literally have to obey the laws of the masquerade and not reveal yourself in certain areas or use your abilities. Make sure that you don't get discovered when you feed on people, or else you like literally lose reputation. And if you get like 5 strikes, they execute you. It's a very compelling game that has these little nags that just kind of like get at you every once in a while, and it gets kind of bad near the end. It gets kind of bad in the last third, although even then there's good stuff. I like the Chinatown stuff that's there. I liked the Hollywood stuff. I actually liked a lot of the Hollywood area, but you can feel it kind of going down. I would still recommend it if it sounds interesting. If you like this style of RPGs and stuff, it's still totally worth playing today. It's a cult classic for a reason, and it is definitely worth revisiting and playing through. I mean, it's not a particularly long game, which is nice. It's kind of a game that you're meant to replay with playing different clans, because they get a little bit of unique stuff for each of them. Not just gameplay wise, but I'm pretty sure they also get some unique story beats and stuff like that. I mean, the Malkavians literally get just oodles of unique dialogue options, because Malkavians, their whole deal is that they're basically like clinically insane. And so they don't even talk. They don't even get the same options as other characters. And they can, there's like all these weird little, like, you can get into arguments with inanimate objects, and like the radio will start talking to you and stuff like that. And it's only for Malkavians. There's clearly so much time. You can tell how much they cared on this project. It was just extenuating circumstances kind of fucked it over. I did play with mods. I played with, which is for a lot of these older PC games, what I usually do is I don't play with any content mods. I mainly just play with basically just quality of life and stability stuff. So I believe it was is it the plus patch? Let's get Bloodlines patch. The unofficial patch. So that does have an option for content additions. I did not play with that. I just played with the stability stuff and to make it run better and in like modern resolutions and stuff like that. Because unfortunately, the modern day releases are basically just, here's the game from 2004 with no optimizations or quality of life improvements or anything. Just have at it. There's like 2 resolution settings, buddy. So would probably recommend that. I think I maybe had 1 crash in my entire playtime. I think it was 1 crash. I think that was it. So it does make the game, I would say, remarkably stable. Vampire Bloodlines, I'm still gonna give it a thumbs up, and I'm still gonna say if it sounds interesting, it is totally worth checking out. There's a sequel coming out, maybe this year, maybe next year. It's changed hands once already, and it seems to be in a weird state development-wise. So I don't know how that's going to turn out. Hopefully good. I don't think any of the original writers are on it, but as long as the writing is equally good, Maybe worth checking out.